Now, back to Miller on Sports, the show where everyone feels like rushing the field. Everything else is just talk. Brought to you by the law offices of Ron Scholes.
If there's certain things you do during a normal week once you're in Indianapolis, if you get a massage on certain days, or if you get treatment, or if you get an extra workout in, you want to try to continue to do those things. You want to try to stay in that same rhythm, have that same schedule.
Eli Manning talking to the media yesterday, the New York Giants quarterback, and saying really that you want to keep that routine. You want to keep everything very similar at the very least, but that's nearly impossible to do. I know coaches always want to talk about it and say, we want to try and keep this very much the same, if not similar, and try and go through a normal week like we usually do. It's a Super Bowl, though. Okay, they make rings when you win this. They don't make rings for everything. Okay, Eli Manning, I understand you want to keep everything fairly normal, but you've got Radio Row, you've got the media hounding you, you've got all these different things, family members asking for tickets. It's a completely different atmosphere. And you can't get around the fact that it is just a different game. Okay, it's much like a conference championship game, or say you get close to March Madness. You want to make it feel somewhat similar. You want to try and play it like any other game, but it's not any other game. Okay, you can tell us that. We might believe you for a little bit, but it's not. It is not the exact same game, and they'll keep telling you that, and we'll keep hearing it over and over again. And I'm glad they keep saying it, because maybe if they say it often enough, they might believe it. Eli Manning, it's not the same thing. You can keep that routine, but it's going to be nearly impossible. Jerome Bettis in an interview said pretty much the exact same thing. Leading up to the Super Bowl, of course, it was held in Detroit. He was pretty much at center stage, and a lot of the talk was around him. Going back to Detroit, winning that Super Bowl, or possibly winning it. And he said, hey, you want to feel like it's a normal week, but it's just not. It is not a normal week. Thanks again to Kerwin Bell, JU head football coach, joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. Always a pleasure with Coach Kerwin Bell. And I'm all about getting the local talk out there of teams doing well. I need to incorporate a lot more high school athletics. But I enjoy that. I enjoy having Matthew Driscoll on. I enjoy when we get to have anybody else on. Cliff Warren on of the JU Dolphins. Kerwin Bell makes some time for us. On Tuesday, we'll have Josh McGregor, the former JU quarterback, and talk to him about the battle for the Florida game. The Battle of Florida All-Star game down south. It was last Saturday, and the North squad, led by Bobby Bowden and Kerwin Bell and Josh McGregor, doing very well. I think the final score was 51-3. Pretty darn good. I'll make sure I have the audio for that interview of Kerwin Bell. I'll make sure I post it on Miller on Sports on Facebook. I'll get it to YouTube. I'll get it to MillerOnSports.com. All that fun stuff. And probably First Coast News as well. So you can check that out for Miller on Sports. But thanks again to Kerwin Bell. And always a pleasure with Matthew Driscoll. I did announce before we had Coach Kerwin Bell on, the Baltimore Ravens lose somebody. They lose their defensive coordinator. The Indianapolis Colts gain a head football coach. It's about time, okay? You get to a certain point, and you just can't twiddle your thumbs anymore, okay? You just can't wait that much longer. The Oakland Raiders named their head coach last night. I feel like every time I see his name, or I just want to call him Steve Allen or Tim Allen or Woody Allen, I don't know. I see the last name Allen, and I think everybody else except his real name, and I think, hey, Tim Allen of Home Improvement. But now you got to get your head coaches in, okay? It's Senior Bowl week. The game is this week. You've got practice all week starting Monday and leading up to the game on Saturday. You need to have a head coach. Tampa Bay still has nobody. Indianapolis finally has somebody, and Chuck Pagano, I'm sure you've heard the name before. Baltimore Ravens, they're all about defense. He's their defensive coordinator, actually was, as of, I guess, about 30 minutes ago. But now he's a head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. He's 51 years old. Hey, he's been with the Ravens since 2008. For 3 years, he dealt with the secondary, then moved up, filled the D coordinator position. And his coaching tree, I guess his main connection for a head coach is Butch Davis. He was with him for the Cleveland Browns for a number of years. He was at Miami with them and moved around, and then was with North Carolina for 1 year back in 2007 as a defensive coordinator. Chuck Pagano is a name you have heard before. I saw the hire, and I'm not so sure how I feel about it. I know Jerry Gray was named the Titans defensive coordinator as a candidate. We heard Jim Tressel interviewed twice. I'm just not sure, in all honesty. I am more focused on what is going to happen with Peyton Manning. I think the majority vote is probably 90-10 of Peyton Manning won't be back with the Colts. Chuck Pagano is a defensive mind, and I find it weird nowadays that you hire a head coach that is primarily defense, because we've seen the NFL. I mean, it's barn burning. It's 50 points a game. It's let's see how many yards we can throw for before we get to halftime, and usually that's around 250 to 500. It feels like. I know I exaggerate, but it feels like that sometimes. It's just that in the NFL, you want that offensive-minded guy, that guru that is going to groom your quarterback, or make sure you have the running lanes, or have a great tight end, or your offensive line is stout, or your wide receivers can go deep and catch balls in the end zone, or at least maybe the red zone. And Chuck Pagano, he gets hired this afternoon for the Indianapolis Colts. I kind of like it. I'm kind of on the fence about it, just because I feel like they need an offensive guy, help out with Andrew Luck, or I guess possibly RG3, or maybe even Peyton Manning. But Chuck Pagano named as a head coach for the Indianapolis Colts this afternoon. Interesting hire. Very interesting. And what's Tampa Bay waiting on? You know, I get irate at times, and I don't know what that is. I guess I drink way too much Coca-Cola, or sometimes way too much coffee. But why are you waiting? I understand that you want to do a thorough job. I understand that. But if you're going to make a decision, if you're going to get rid of one head coach and say, okay, well, we've gotten rid of him, and let's see, who are we going to look at? If you're getting rid of somebody, why would you not already start doing homework on other candidates? Now, maybe they've been chosen already, or maybe you just don't like the guys that are still available, but then why would you fire that head coach? To make change just for the sake of change? I'm not in favor of that. I'm really not. Unless it's been, say, 9-10 years and you just haven't made any changes at all, then you probably should make a change. Kind of like Jack Del Rio. But Oakland, they hired their head coach last night, Denver's former defensive coordinator, and Dennis Allen. Is anybody else finding this surprising? I mean, borderline shocking. First off, Denver, if any coordinator was going to get hired as a head coach, I thought it was going to be Mike McCoy. Offensive coordinator. He had interest. Jacksonville, I had been hearing for a number of probably 4 or 5 days that he could have been the guy. If Denver had lost to Pittsburgh, Mike McCoy could very well be the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. Very well could be. But instead, they beat Pittsburgh. Fantastic finish, 80-yarder, Demaryius Thomas. Fun game. We'll remember it for a long time to come. But Dennis Allen gets a head coaching gig in Oakland, and Mike McCoy, not so much. I look at this and I think, Dennis Allen, you are the defensive coordinator for Denver. You have profited so much from Von Miller's success. That's what I see. And I also see this as a hiring that Al Davis would be very pleased at. You look at the last 10 years in Oakland, and it seems like they hire a coach and then maybe lasts a year, maybe lasts 2, maybe lasts 3. Dennis Allen, though, this has been my biggest question. And you can check it out with the Morning Miller on Sports. You can check out MillerOnSports.com, First Coast News, and you can find it. It'll be a regular piece every morning. But will Dennis Allen, is he a better fit than Hugh Jackson? Will he do more than Hugh Jackson could have done in year 2? Or is this just a GM coming in, Reggie McKenzie, and saying, all right, even though we have the same agent, Hugh Jackson, you're out. Let's bring in somebody else, Dennis Allen. Let's see what we can do. I don't like it. I really don't. I think Carson Palmer can play okay. Darren McFadden, I hope the injury doesn't linger as much because I like watching him as a football player. But then I see this. You bring in Dennis Allen, Hugh Jackson's gone, and it's like, what is going on? Am I missing something? Am I not paying attention nearly enough? And that's not the case. And then Tampa Bay, who knows what they're doing? And they're just waiting forever. They've got to know something we don't, right? They interviewed today Mike Sherman for the second time for that Bucs opening. And they're saying the job's going to be filled by the end of this week. Guess good luck with that.